The seconds are out. The crowd is waiting. The boxers are getting ready to battle. Time for another edition of the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast with your presenter, Greg Rashid.
This is the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast, and this is Dixon Young, pitching in for Greg Rashid today. Greg is getting some new equipment for his studio to improve the broadcast quality. He calls this a boxing variety show. Up first is Felicia with the boxing history for the week, followed by the fantasy fight between Henry Cooper and Derek Chisora. Title Bout 2 PC game was used to sim this fight. Our announcer for the event is legendary Hall of Famer Sonny Huff.
This is your girl Felicia, and welcome to your boxing history for the week of July 26th through August 1st. Every week we take a stroll through boxing's incredible past, remembering the champions, the unforgettable battles, and those moments that still have fans debating decades later. So, lace up those gloves, ring the bell, and let's step into the time machine. July 26, 2008. Antonio Margarito scored the biggest victory of his career when he stopped the previously unbeaten Miguel Cotto in the 11th round to capture the WBA welterweight championship. It was a brutal, action-packed fight that had fans on the edge of their seats. But the celebration didn't last forever. Just months later, Margarito was found with illegal substances in his hand wraps before another fight, leading many fans and boxing historians to question whether his victory over Cotto had been completely legitimate. To this day, it's one of the sport's most controversial championship bouts. July 27, 1921. World middleweight champion Johnny Wilson successfully defended his crown when challenger William Bryan Downey was disqualified in the 7th round. Wilson was one of boxing's toughest defensive fighters during the 1920s and built a reputation for frustrating opponents with his rugged style. Sometimes the judges settled the score, and sometimes the rulebook did. July 28, 2001. Pound-for-pound king Roy Jones Jr. continued his reign of dominance by defending his WBC, WBA, and IBF light heavyweight titles against the undefeated Julio Cesar Gonzalez. Jones displayed the lightning-fast reflexes, pinpoint accuracy, and athleticism that made him one of the greatest fighters of his generation. Watching Roy in his prime almost seemed unfair. He made world-class opponents look like they forgot to study for the final exam. July 29, 1751. Let's travel way back, before boxing gloves, before television, and before anyone had ever heard the phrase pay-per-view. On this day, England's Jack Stack defeated France's M. Petit in what is recognised as one of the earliest international championship prize fights. The contest lasted 29 gruelling minutes under the old bare-knuckle rules, reminding us just how far the sweet science has evolved over nearly 3 centuries. July 30th, 1977. Legendary Argentine champion Carlos Monzon successfully defended his world middleweight championship against Rodrigo Valdez in their highly anticipated rematch. Monzon's remarkable combination of patience, power, and ring intelligence helped him close out one of the greatest middleweight title reigns in boxing history. After the victory, Monzon retired as champion, ending an incredible career with the title still around his waist. July 31st, 2010. Juan Manuel Marquez once again proved why he was one of boxing's greatest counterpunchers. He defeated Juan Diaz for the second consecutive time, retaining his WBO lightweight championship, while also capturing the WBA Superworld lightweight title. Marquez's timing and precision were so sharp that opponents probably wished they could ask for a replay before getting hit. August 1st, 1987. One of the biggest nights in heavyweight boxing history. Mike Tyson defeated Tony Tucker by unanimous decision to add the IBF Heavyweight Championship to his WBC and WBA titles, becoming the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world at just 21 years old. Tucker gave Tyson one of his toughest fights to that point, using his height and long reach effectively, but Tyson's relentless pressure and explosive combinations earned him the historic victory. And that's your trip through boxing history for this week. I hope you enjoyed walking through these unforgettable moments with me as much as I enjoyed sharing them with you. I'm your girl, Felicia, reminding you that boxing isn't just about punches. It's about history, courage, determination, and the unforgettable people who step through those ropes. Thank you so much for listening. I love each and every one of you, and yes, I read all of your emails. So keep those questions, comments, favorite boxing memories, and suggestions coming. Until next time, take care of yourselves, be kind to one another, and keep your hands up, unless you're giving someone a great big hug. See you next week.
Hi, this is legendary Hall of Famer Sonny Huff. Folks, boxing is all about footwork, head movement, and keeping your guard up. But there's one opponent nobody wants to face. The dreaded underarm funk. I've seen heavyweights survive 12 rounds with champions, then knock out their own corner with one victory celebration. Their jabs are beautiful, but their armpits are throwing uppercuts. Don't let your left hook smell like it came from the lost and found locker room. Use Knockout Fresh Deodorant. It's tough enough to go the distance, keeps you smelling clean from the opening bell to the final decision, and won't quit, even if your opponent does. Always a winner by unanimous decision. Knockout Fresh. Whether you're chasing a world title or just trying to survive the post-workout handshake, Knockout Fresh is the undisputed champion against underarm funk. And remember, if the legendary Hall of Famer Sonny Huff endorses a product, you know it's good. Hi, this is legendary Hall of Famer Sonny Huff, coming to you on these airways from a sold-out Wembley Stadium. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, from around the world. We are coming to you from one of boxing's most sacred cathedrals. More than 90,000 passionate British fight fans have packed every available seat inside magnificent Wembley Stadium. The Union Jacks are waving proudly. The chants are echoing beneath the famous arch. And the electricity in the air can almost be touched. Tonight is more than a heavyweight contest. Tonight is a celebration of British boxing history. In one corner stands one of the toughest modern-day warriors ever produced by Britain, Derek Del Boy Chisora. Across the ring waits one of England's greatest sporting heroes, the beloved Henry Cooper, the man whose famous left hook once knocked down even Muhammad Ali. Generations of boxing fans have dreamed of this matchup. Old supporters who remember Cooper's glory days sit beside younger fans who have followed Chisora's remarkable career. Fathers have brought sons. Grandfathers have brought grandchildren. This isn't simply a prize fight. It is a bridge between two eras of British boxing. Before the opening bell, let's take a closer look at these remarkable fighters. Henry Cooper became one of Britain's most beloved athletes during the golden age of heavyweight boxing. Growing up in London alongside his twin brother George, Cooper worked tirelessly to climb through the amateur ranks before becoming one of the finest professionals Europe ever produced. His greatest weapon became legendary, the thunderous left hook known simply as Henry's Hammer. Few punches in boxing history carried more respect. His courage became equally famous. Cooper never backed away from anyone. Whether facing American contenders or the greatest champion of them all, he represented Britain with enormous pride. His unforgettable battle against Muhammad Ali remains one of the defining moments in British sporting history. Cooper's left hook nearly changed boxing history forever, flooring the future legend before the dramatic conclusion of their bout. Although world championship glory narrowly escaped him, Henry Cooper became something even rarer. he became a national treasure. Now let's turn our attention to the opposite corner. Derek Chisora has built his career through grit, determination, and an almost unbelievable willingness to fight anyone. While many heavyweights carefully selected opponents, Chisora traveled wherever the toughest challenges waited. Whether facing world champions, rising contenders, or dangerous veterans, he consistently answered the call. His aggressive pressure, relentless body attack, and fearless personality made him one of boxing's most entertaining heavyweights. Win or lose, fans knew exactly what they would receive whenever Chisora climbed through the ropes. Action, violence, heart, no shortcuts, no retreat. He made opponents fight every second. British boxing has always admired courage above perfection, and few modern fighters have embodied courage better than Derek Chisora. That is why tonight means so much. This is not merely old versus new. This is pressure against precision, aggression against timing, modern heavyweight strength against classic British technique. The crowd rises. The introductions are complete. The referee gives his final instructions. Both fighters touch gloves. There is respect, but only for a moment. The bell rings, and here we go. From the opening exchanges, Chisora immediately attempts to crowd Cooper, pressing forward behind a determined attack to the body. Cooper, however, remains wonderfully composed. His footwork is economical, his balance flawless. He patiently waits for opportunities rather than forcing them. Suddenly, Cooper snaps a beautiful hook that catches Chisora cleanly. The crowd roars. Another hook follows moments later, and Chisora quickly realizes that every mistake may be answered by that famous left hand. Cooper continues to find openings with sharp counters, while Chisora struggles to establish his rhythm. The opening round belongs to the veteran stylist. The second round begins with Chisora increasing the pressure. He closes distance more effectively, ties Cooper up when necessary, and begins landing solid, straight punches. Cooper answers with crisp combinations of his own. But this time, Chisora refuses to be discouraged. The crowd appreciates the adjustment. Every successful punch from Chisora receives thunderous applause. Every Cooper counter brings equal excitement. Neither man gives an inch. As the third round unfolds, Henry Cooper begins demonstrating why he remains one of Britain's finest technicians. His timing is exceptional. Whenever Chisora rushes inside, Cooper greets him with hooks that seem to arrive from nowhere. Another lands flush, then another. Chisora absorbs them with remarkable toughness, but cannot completely avoid the punishment. Late in the round, Chisora finally answers with a powerful uppercut that briefly excites the crowd. Yet Cooper finishes strongly with another trademark hook before the bell. The fourth round becomes Henry Cooper at his brilliant best. He establishes the jab beautifully. Every successful jab opens another opportunity. Crosses begin finding their mark. The combinations become increasingly accurate. Midway through the round, a sharp sequence rocks Chisora badly. Termination on his face says everything. He will not surrender. Not here, not tonight. Even while absorbing punishment, Chisora continues searching for one opportunity to change the fight. That opportunity nearly arrives in the fifth. A Wembley crowd leaps to its feet. Chisora staggers backward into the ropes, but somehow refuses to fall. After spending much of the round pursuing Cooper around the ring, Chisora suddenly uncorks a devastating uppercut. Cooper's knees dip noticeably. The stadium gasps. For one thrilling moment, the momentum shifts dramatically. Chisora pours forward, looking for another big shot. But Cooper remains calm under pressure. The experienced veteran regains control, answers with sharp uppercuts of his own, and survives the scare. What resilience from both men! Round 6 becomes a battle of endurance. Neither heavyweight wants to give ground. Cooper continues landing wonderfully timed combinations. Chisora fires back with determined counters whenever opportunities appear. Every exchange is greeted by tremendous cheers from every section of Wembley Stadium. No one is sitting anymore. The atmosphere has become deafening. By the 7th round, the signs of battle begin showing on both men. Chisora's right eye starts swelling after another accurate Cooper jab. The referee has already spoken sternly to both fighters regarding fouls during rough exchanges inside. Neither boxer complains. Neither boxer looks for excuses. Both simply continue fighting. That is the British way. Then comes the unforgettable 8th round. Cooper begins landing accurately once again. A combination lands. Another cross follows. Then, boom! Henry Cooper uncorks a crushing cross that sends Derek Chisora crashing to the canvas. The entire stadium explodes. Thousands leap from their seats. The referee immediately begins counting. Chisora blinks, rolls to one knee, pulls himself upright before the count reaches its conclusion. What incredible courage! Most heavyweights would still be searching for their senses. Not Derek Chisora. He comes right back into the battle. Cooper attempts to finish matters. Hooks, crosses, jabs, everything comes flying. Yet somehow Chisora survives the storm. Even more astonishing, late in the round, Chisora lands a thunderous uppercut that visibly buckles Henry Cooper's legs. Now it is Cooper who must steady himself. The crowd cannot believe what they are witnessing. Momentum changes with every exchange. This is heavyweight boxing at its absolute finest. Round 9 belongs to pure determination. Chisora launches perhaps his best offensive sequence of the entire fight, connecting with several impressive combinations that force Cooper backward. The crowd senses hope. Could Chisora be mounting one final comeback? But champions answer adversity. Cooper responds magnificently. He lands a devastating uppercut. Another follows. Then a straight right. Then another clean punch. Each shot reminds everyone why his timing has frustrated Chisora throughout the evening. As the final round begins, both heavyweights show unmistakable signs of fatigue. Yet neither man stops trying. Neither man looks for a safe finish. Every punch still carries honest intention. Every exchange receives roaring approval from 90,000 appreciative fans. Chisora digs deep, searching desperately for one last miracle. Cooper continues boxing with remarkable discipline, choosing his moments carefully and landing clean scoring punches whenever openings appear. The final seconds tick away. The crowd begins counting down together. The bell rings. What a magnificent contest! Both fighters embrace in the center of the ring. There are no losers in terms of courage tonight. The judges complete their scorecards. The ring announcer receives the official totals. The crowd waits in respectful silence. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner by unanimous decision, Henry Cooper. Listen to this ovation. The Wembley Stadium crowd rises together in appreciation, not simply for Henry Cooper, not simply for Derek Chisora, but for British heavyweight boxing itself. Henry Cooper once again demonstrated the beautiful timing, precision, and ring intelligence that made him one of Britain's greatest fighters. Derek Chisora reminded everyone why fans have admired him throughout his career. His determination, resilience, and refusal to quit turned this into an unforgettable contest. Tonight, generations came together beneath one roof. Legends were honored. Warriors were celebrated. British boxing added another memorable chapter to its extraordinary history. I will now return you to our Bangkok studios. See you next time on these airwaves. This is legendary Hall of Famer Sonny Huff. And remember, it is always a great day when it's sunny.
Great broadcast by the legendary Hall of Famer Sonny Huff. Next up are Malcolm and Ella discussing the upcoming Errol Spence Jr. versus Tim Tszyu fight.
Welcome to the debate. You know, in boxing, we love to analyze footwork, right? We map out reach advantages and we break down punch statistics. We desperately want to treat the sport like a clean mathematical equation.
Right, like it's all just geometry and data.
Exactly. But sometimes a matchup strips away all of that theoretical geometry and it leaves us with a much darker, a much more visceral question, which is simply, who is less broken?
Yeah, that is the exact reality of this fight. We aren't looking at two undefeated prospects operating at the peak of their athletic prime.
Not at all.
No, we're looking at a landscape of human attrition, physical trauma, and, profound vulnerability.
Which brings us to the highly anticipated July 25th, 2026 middleweight clash at the Afterpay Arena down in Sydney, Australia. We are analyzing the matchup between 36-year-old Errol the Truth Spence Jr. and 31-year-old Tim the Phoenix Tszyu.
It's a massive fight.
It is. And the core question defining this bout is incredibly stark. Has Errol Spence Jr.'s, his 3-year layoff and his jump up to the 160-pound weight limit completely sealed his fate against a highly active pressure fighter, or does Spence's historical mastery of southpaw mechanics and just his sheer technical superiority entirely neutralize Tim Tszyu's aggression?
Well, I look at the inescapable biological realities of combat sports here.
Okay, biological realities? Yes. Chizzy's relentless
combat conditioning, his natural physical acclimation to that 160-pound limit, and the psychological reset he's undergone with Hall of Fame trainer Jeff Finnick. It gives him a physiological and environmental edge that a heavily aged, inactive fighter simply cannot overcome.
I have to disagree there. I maintain that Spence's elite pedigree, paired with a massive defensive reinvention under veteran trainer Ronnie Shields, provides the exact blueprint to systematically dismantle Tszyu.
Dismantle? That's a strong word for a guy who hasn't fought in 3 years.
Look, we have to start by acknowledging the staggering gap in historical pedigree here. There are levels to the sport, and Errol Spence Jr. possesses a historical dominance that Tszyu simply hasn't touched. We're talking about a unified champion with a 78.57% knockout ratio over 29 professional fights.
Sure, the history is there, but
wait, when people suggest that Tim Tszyu is just going to march forward and overwhelm him with pressure, they are completely ignoring how Spence has systematically dismantled pressure fighters in the past. Take the 2019 Sean Porter fight.
That was 7 years ago.
But the mechanics remain. Porter is the ultimate smothering pressure fighter, yet Spence beat him at his own game on the inside. He didn't just shell up, he used his forearms to frame, he created micro angles in the pocket, and he landed a staggering 44% of his power shots. That requires a fundamental understanding of distance and leverage that doesn't just evaporate.
Pedigree is a beautiful concept in theory, but, in reality, it decays. You are talking about pedigree as if it is a permanent shield.
I'm just saying the skills are foundational.
You're completely ignoring the fact that by the time the bell rings on July 25th, Errol Spence Jr. will not have fought in nearly 1,100 days.
He's been resting, healing.
Ring rust isn't just about missing the heavy bag. It is about neurological lag. It's the difference between muscle memory that fires in milliseconds versus a brain that has to consciously process, oh, there's a right hand coming. By the time that signal reaches a 36-year-old set of legs, the fighter is already on the canvas.
Obviously, Spence suffered a devastating loss to Terrence Crawford in 2023, but his move to Ronnie Shields provides the exact defensive refinement he needs to restore that lateral agility.
But meanwhile, since Spence last actually won a fight, which, let's remember, was all the way back in April 2022 against Yordenis Ugas, Tim Tszyu has fought 9 times.
Right, he's been busy.
Very busy. 9 professional training camps, 9 brutal weight cuts, 9 walks to the ring under the lights. The sheer disparity in combat conditioning and rhythm is just astronomical. And now that Tszyu is working with Jeff Fenech, he has stripped away all the BS distractions of previous camps.
You mean the Pedro Diaz experiment?
Exactly. That completely disjointed stint trying to learn a Cuban boxing style in Miami. He's dropped that and returned to a highly disciplined version of his natural volume punching style.
I completely understand why Tsuyu's 9-fight run looks impressive on paper, but we really need to look at the mechanical reality of what you're calling combat conditioning. Isn't Tsuyu's recent activity actually just accelerating his own physical decline?
How so? Activity is what keeps a fighter sharp.
It's like running a heavily damaged engine at the red line. Let's examine his 2024 and 2025 campaign. In March 2024 against Sebastian Fundora, he suffers a catastrophic scalp laceration, right? He fights 10 rounds essentially blinded by his own blood.
Which shows incredible heart.
But incredible damage. Then, against Bakram Murtazalev, he gets knocked to the canvas 4 separate times and stopped in the 3rd round. And then he retires in the 7th round of the Fundora rematch. That is an astonishing amount of concussive damage in a very condensed timeline.
That's boxing, though. You take damage.
I would argue that right now, Spence's rest is his greatest asset. Ronnie Shields has been explicitly clear that Spence passed rigorous medical evaluations before this camp even began. He isn't coming off the couch. He has been working privately this entire time to rebuild his mechanics.
Oh, come on. Working privately in the laboratory, shadow boxing and hitting mitts, that is a completely different universe than taking live fire from a natural 154-pounder who was filling out to 160.
He's a unified champion. He knows what live fire feels like.
And we cannot talk about concussive damage without talking about Spence's history of severe physical trauma. He was thrown from a tumbling Ferrari in 2019. He required surgery for a detached retina in 2021. And the Crawford fight in July 2023 wasn't just a loss. It was a systemic, life-altering physical beating.
It was a bad night, absolutely.
Crawford completely dismantled him. He dropped him multiple times before stopping him in the 9th round. When Crawford was countering Spence's jab with those reactive uppercuts, Spence looked like he was fighting underwater. His legs completely lacked spring.
Which is why the long layoff was necessary.
A 36-year-old body does not magically regenerate that neurological snap just because you take 3 years off. When Tszyu lands his first flush right hand, Spence's body is going to involuntarily remember the Crawford fight. The trauma response in boxing is entirely physiological.
Look, I don't disagree that the Crawford fight was damaging, but that trauma response is exactly why Spence completely overhauled his corner. And this is where the strategic battle gets so fascinating to me. Both men recognize that their previous blueprints completely failed them, prompting massive trainer changes.
Right. They both hit the reset button.
Exactly. But when you look at the architecture of these new camps, Ronnie Shields has built a vastly superior tactical framework for Spence than what Fenech is attempting with Tszyu.
Superior? How can you look at the ashes of Spence's split from Derek James and call that a superior foundation? Fenech has built a unified, happy camp by bringing Tszyu home to Australia and installing this Aussie warrior grit layered with crucial defensive responsibilities.
Let's talk about the Derek James split, though, because it reveals exactly why Spence looked so flat against Crawford. We're talking about a crowded gym where James was simultaneously trying to run camps for Anthony Joshua and Frank Martin.
A busy gym doesn't mean a bad camp.
But James openly admitted that Spence suffered an injury that prevented him from sparring for the final 8 weeks leading into the Crawford fight. Think about the physical mechanics of that. Spence fought the best pound-for-pound fighter on the planet with 0 live sparring in the 2 months prior. No wonder his timing was entirely eroded.
But moving to a new trainer at 36 doesn't just erase that.
Moving to Ronnie Shields changes that entirely. Shields preaches a strict hit and don't get hit philosophy that perfectly utilizes Spence's natural southpaw geometry. You know, when a southpaw like Spence gets his right foot outside an orthodox fighter's left foot, it's not just about maintaining balance.
I know the geometry, but applying it under pressure is different.
It effectively blinds the orthodox fighter to the left hand and completely shuts down their straight right. It forces them to punch across their own body, stripping away their leverage. That foot positioning opens up the exact left hook to the body that Spence has used to break down 28 previous opponents. Former undisputed champion Zab Judah predicted Spence will use this exact systematic man-down pressure to walk Tszyu into a round 9 stoppage.
I fundamentally reject the idea that Errol Spence Jr. at 36 years old is going to transform into a slick, lateral-moving defensive tactician. You simply cannot reprogram 151 professional rounds of high-attrition, brawling instinct overnight.
It's not overnight. He's had 3 years.
When a fighter is put under extreme duress, like when the lungs are burning and they get clipped on the chin, they don't revert to what they learned on the mitts 3 weeks ago. They revert to their base instincts, and Spence's instinct, built over a decade, is to stand his ground, plant his feet, and trade.
He's smarter than that now.
If he tries to implement a highly mobile lateral game plan, his feet simply won't be able to keep up with the idea in his head. We saw the training footage. His legs still look heavy. Phoenix's approach is far more realistic. He isn't trying to change Tszyu's identity.
He's just trying to patch holes in a sinking ship.
No, he knows Tszyu is a natural volume puncher. Fennec simply broke down the film of the Fundora and Murtazaliev fights to identify the exact micro moment where Tszyu was leaving his chin exposed on the inside, and he just drilled him to keep his hands glued to his cheekbones during exchanges.
But Spence doesn't need to become a slick outboxer who dances around the ring. He just needs to restore the subtle head movement and the framing that made him so devastating in the pocket during the Sean Porter and Kell Brook fights. If he controls that outside foot, he completely diffuses Tszyu's primary weapon.
But all of this tactical geometry collapses when you factor in the physiological toll of the brand new weight class. These blueprints aren't being executed in a vacuum. They are colliding at a 160-pound middleweight limit, halfway across the world in Sydney, Australia.
Right, the location is a factor.
And this environmental and physiological context completely dictates the outcome of the fight.
I'm glad you brought up the weight, actually, because this fight was originally negotiated as a 158-pound catch weight to bridge the gap between their preferred divisions, but was ultimately moved to the full 160-pound limit.
Exactly. And that 13-pound jump from Spence's historical primary weight of 147 pounds is a massive, glaring red flag. When a 36-year-old fighter suddenly demands to move up 2 weight classes, it is an undeniable indicator of a fading metabolism.
I completely disagree with that interpretation.
It tells us that his internal organs simply cannot endure the rigors of a strict weight cut anymore. His body is rejecting the process. On the flip side, Tszyu is only moving up 6 pounds from his natural 154-pound division.
He's getting heavier too.
But naturally, No Limit Boxing CEO George Rose pointed this out perfectly. 160 pounds allows Tszyu to be the absolute bully. He hasn't fought this heavy since 2017. He isn't draining himself. He gets to step into the ring at his absolute maximum functional strength against a man whose body is expanding just to survive the camp.
I see how you arrive at that conclusion, but the physiological reality of weight cutting actually points to this being a brilliant strategic move by Spence. The move to 160 pounds was entirely at Errol Spence's request.
Because he couldn't make 154?
He didn't capitulate. He dictated the terms because he is the big fish in the negotiation. This extra 13 pounds isn't a sign of weakness. It provides vital physical padding. Let's look at the mechanics of dehydration in combat sports. When you drain 13 pounds of water from your body in your mid-30s, you aren't just losing fat. You are depleting the cerebral spinal fluid that protects your brain.
Well, dehydration is dangerous, sure.
By eliminating that draining cut and fighting at 160, Spence is retaining that vital fluid, which directly preserves his punch resistance. Furthermore, it keeps the strength in his legs for the championship rounds. He is optimizing his body for durability to absorb Tszyu's early pressure.
Padding or not, carrying extra, unfamiliar mass on an aging frame requires more oxygen and slows down your fast-twitch muscle fibers. But let's compound that weight with the environmental nightmare Spence is walking into. He arrived in Sydney just 9 days before the bout.
9 days is plenty of time to acclimatize.
He is facing a 15-hour flight, severe jet lag, and the circadian disruption of a midnight local ring walk to accommodate the United States pay-per-view audience. Sebastian Fundora, who has shared the ring with Tszyu twice, specifically cited the hostile Sydney crowd and the location as the primary reasons he is predicting a Tszyu victory.
The crowd can't fight for him.
The home court advantage in boxing isn't just about noise. It directly influences the judging, and it fuels the adrenaline of an emotional, momentum-based fighter like Tszyu.
You bring up emotion, and I actually believe that is Tszyu's most fatal vulnerability in this matchup. This buildup has become intensely personal and incredibly hostile. It all started with that handshake snub in Las Vegas, where Spence flat out refused to shake Tszyu's hand and publicly dismissed him as a regular fighter who isn't anywhere near the caliber of his famous father, Kostya Tszyu.
And Tszyu absolutely took that personally. He called Spence a diva, angrily referenced Keith Thurman, and promised to do to Spence exactly what Fundora did to Thurman.
Right, and Spence leaned directly into that anger. He told Tszyu that if he wants a war, let it be a war. But here is the mechanical problem with fighting angry. When an aggressive fighter fights purely on emotion, they overcommit. They shift their weight too far over their front knee trying to land a knockout blow.
Or they just hit harder.
If Tszyu comes out headhunting, trying to prove a point to his hometown crowd and punish Spence for the disrespect, he is going to abandon his jab and walk face first into clinical, devastating counterpunches. Emotional fighting destroys defensive discipline. It will completely unravel all the careful, calming work Jeff Fenech has spent months trying to implement. Tszyu's rage is going to be weaponized against him.
I don't see it as reckless emotion at all. I see it as absolute, focused desperation. Tszyu is highly aware that a fourth loss on the world stage in a 3-year span essentially terminates his aspirations for pound greatness. If he loses this, he is relegated to being a local Australian stadium attraction.
That's a lot of pressure.
Exactly. That level of existential professional desperation, channeled correctly by a mentor like Fenech, creates a terrifyingly dangerous fighter. Tszyu has explicitly stated his plan is to test Spence's heart and desire immediately.
He can try.
If Tszyu imposes his superior physical strength, which is heavily amplified by that 160-pound limit, and specifically targets that surgically repaired left eye in the opening rounds, we are going to find out very quickly if Spence is actually there to fight to the death or if he's just collecting a massive retirement check.
I think it's deeply uncharitable to reduce Errol Spence's motivations to a paycheck. This is a man whose entire identity, his entire life's work is tied to his legacy as a unified world champion. He wants to erase the stand of the Crawford loss just as desperately as Tszyu wants to erase the Fundora and Murtazaliev losses.
Desire doesn't reverse aging, though.
But ultimately, legacy doesn't throw punches. Technique does, and structurally, Spence's technique is fundamentally superior. The southpaw angles, the precision bodywork, the ability to control the distance with a framing lead hand, these are physiological and geometrical realities of boxing that don't just disappear, even with ring rust.
I just don't think he'll have the timing to pull it off.
If Spence can weather that early emotional storm from Chizo in the first 4 rounds, the systemic breakdown begins. The heavier weight will start to drain Chizo's gas tank because he will be swinging at air. His defense will get sloppy, and Spence will systematically break him down to the body.
And I firmly maintain that the 3-year layoff is simply an insurmountable hurdle when facing a high-volume puncher at a heavier weight class. Boxing is entirely a sport of timing and micro-reflexes.
We'll see about that.
If you lose a fraction of a second in your reaction time due to 1,100 days of inactivity, suddenly you are catching punches flush on the chin that you used to slip by a millimeter.
Sue's momentum, his absolute physical peak at 31 years old, his massive home field advantage, and the psychological clarity Jeff Fenech has provided, all of that will allow him to overwhelm an aging star who is quite literally fighting out of his natural weight class and out of his era.
It is genuinely fascinating to look at how completely opposite our reads on this matchup are, yet how both of our conclusions are grounded in the exact same variables.
Yeah, it really is a coin toss in some ways.
As we summarize our positions, I stand firm that technical brilliance and structural advantages ultimately outlast pure emotional aggression. A healthier, heavier Errol Spence, preserving his punch resistance by avoiding the weight cut, guided by Ronnie Shields' defensive adjustments, has the precise southpaw tools required to diffuse juice pressure, control the outside foot, and secure a late-round victory.
And I stand firm that basic biology and consistent activity reign supreme in combat sports. The sheer neurological rust of 1,100 days of inactivity, compounded by catastrophic previous physical trauma and a brutal 15-hour flight, cannot be overcome against a unified, motivated, and naturally stronger Tim Tizzy fighting in his own backyard.
What we definitely converge on, though, is the sheer gravity of this moment for both men. Promoter Eddie Hearn accurately called this fight a dramatic last roll of the dice. Both of these fighters are entering the ring incredibly vulnerable, carrying the heavy psychological weight of recent, devastating defeats.
Oh, absolutely. It is remarkably rare to see a mega fight of this scale where both A-side attractions are essentially fighting for their professional survival. Usually the narrative is, a young prospect challenging an aging king, or two undefeated champions colliding at their peaks.
Right, someone is usually on the rise.
Here, we have two men who have stared into the boxing abyss and are desperately trying to climb back out. The disagreement simply lies in whether it will be technical fundamentals or youths and combat conditioning that provides the latter.
It really highlights how incredibly complex it is to predict outcomes at the absolute highest levels of combat sports. We aren't just looking at who hits harder. We are trying to weigh the impact of neurological decay, catastrophic injury history, massive 13-pound weight transitions, and sweeping trainer changes all at exactly the same time.
There are so many moving parts.
There really are. There is so much more to explore in how elite athletes manage the twilight of their primes and how they attempt to reinvent their physical mechanics when their original blueprints fail.
It is the human element completely overriding the mathematical equation. You can map the stats, calculate the reach, and debate the footwork all day long, but you cannot measure the exact rate of physical decay or the exact depth of a fighter's renewed willpower until the bell actually rings and they take that first punch.
Exactly. We open by talking about how people want boxing to be like a clean engineering problem, where the numbers tell the whole story in black and white. But on July 25th in Sydney, there will be no clean math. Just two damaged, desperate fighters trying to solve a high-stakes puzzle in the muddy waters of the ring. We leave it to you, the listener, to draw your own conclusions on who will sink and who will swim.
Thanks for that discussion, Malcolm and Ella. My opinion is that Spence will upset Zoo and win by a late round stoppage. Who are you picking? Now for some music, starting with Jade Mustique with their cut, What is 250, followed by Jurian Funk with Swipe My Love. And if you are just tuning in, this is Dixon Young, pitching in for Greg Rashid on the Shoulder Roll Virtual Boxing Podcast.
Another face, another smile, another picture in the line. Everybody's looking perfect, but you're the one that's caught my eye. No filters needed, no disguise. I can see it in your eyes. Why keep scrolling all night long when the real thing feels this strong? One little touch, one little spark, lighting up the dark. Don't let this moment disappear. I'm already here. Swipe my love, swipe it right. Let's turn this match into tonight. No more waiting, no more maybe. Come a little closer, baby. Swipe my love, take a chance. Let's put this heart into romance. Skip the games and all the hype. Find forever with one swipe. Every message makes me smile. Every second's worth the while. You're more than words upon a screen. You're everything I've dreamed. Let's trade emojis for a kiss. There's a world beyond all this. Put your phone down, take my hand. Love was never meant to be planned. Every heartbeat sends a sign. Maybe you were meant for mine. Don't let destiny pass by. Give us one more try. Swipe my love, swipe it right. Let's turn this match into tonight. No more waiting, no more maybe. Come a little closer, baby. Swipe my love, take a chance. Let's put this heart into romance. Skip the games and all the hype. Find forever with one swipe. Forget the lights, forget the views. Love ain't measured by the news. It's a feeling you can't fake. It's a chance you've got to take. I'm not looking for a trend. I'm looking for a best friend. When our two hearts synchronize, that's the real grand prize. Swipe, swipe, swipe my love. Swipe it right, swipe it right. Touch, touch, touch my heart. Don't let this feeling stop. Dance, dance all night long. We've been waiting for too long. Swipe my love, swipe it right. We're gonna set this room alight. Move together side by side. Nothing left for us to hide. Swipe my love, don't delay. Love is only one touch away. When the music feels this right, we'll be dancing through the night. Don't keep scrolling by. Swipe my love, come and catch this vibe. Swipe my love, baby, make your move. Swipe my love, we've got nothing left to prove. Come on, right here. One more swipe, that's all it takes. Swipe my love.
That was Durian Funk with Swipe My Love. Before that, we started the set with What is 250? by Jade Mystique. I enjoyed subbing for Greg today and will be more than happy to do so again. Make every moment count and enjoy it. Great week, everyone. Dixon Young. Until we meet again.
Thanks for tuning in. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Please become a member at patreon.com under the title Ringside Fantasy Fights and News. See you next time.